Good evening. This is Biz in Focus. Tonight's discussion surrounds the free trade agreement signed between the governments of Sri Lanka and Singapore. Joining us this evening is Mr. Kapila Pereira. He is the Secretary of the Professionals National Front. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Kapila, when we talk about the free trade agreement signed between the governments of Singapore and Sri Lanka, this agreement is signed or inked between the two governments in January 2018. However, professional bodies such as yourself, for example, representing the IT sector, we see professionals up in arms about the apparent ill effects of this agreement. Now, usually a free trade agreement is supposed to bring with it liberalization of trade and a lot of positive impacts for the two countries involved. However, you have an opposing view. Tell us, what is your stance on this agreement?
The main thing is that if we take this Singapore agreement, actually we can go to a good agreement between Sri Lanka and Singapore if we are keen enough, if our negotiation team was capable of doing that, and if they wanted to do that, I believe that they could have done a better job. But the thing is, now it is not like that. As you know, at the moment, most of the professionals organizations, IT, doctors, architects, engineers, everyone is opposing this agreement, mainly because of the wrong commitments that we did in the schedules. That is the major issue. And there are some more facts, like from our side, we consider as nationals only our citizens, and from Singapore side they consider PR holders and citizens both, and this opens a gate to any PR holder in Singapore as well. So there are several ways of getting the PR in Singapore.
Right, but Mr. Pereira, releasing a press release, the Ministry of International Strategies has clearly set out that there are qualifications as to who will be permitted to enter the country. There are qualifications. For example, it has to be an expert who has worked for at least 12 months in a Singaporean company. That company should have invested in Sri Lanka, so on and so forth.
Yes, there are some regulations there. Number one is we don't have a good regulatory framework. We are asking for that for a long time.
But we are told that the Immigration Act will be amended within the next few weeks, and that will be brought forth. We are also told that Sri Lanka has a fear that it will be used as a dumping ground for low quality products and services. However, there are anti-dumping regulations, laws that were brought in just recently.
Yeah, for dumping there are treaties and laws that we will, if we establish them, we may control dumping. That's true. But handling visas and regulatory framework, it is a bit difficult, and because you can't just say that they can create a law without discussing different professionals and identifying which institute should screen this, things like that. There are many aspects to consider because it's not easy.
Mr. Pereira, are you saying that before the free trade agreement between Sri Lanka and Singapore was signed, your organization or intellectuals in terms of the IT sector, professionals, were not consulted? Is that what you're saying, or are you saying that there were consultations but they were not effective?
Yes, with the IT sector, they haven't had much consultation, but they had consultation with engineers, for example IESL, but IESL directly saying that they are not happy with the FTA. Professor Niranjani, engineer, she's directly saying that as the organization that they are not happy with this commitment especially. So it is same with the architects and other professions as well.
As a professional who's representing the IT sector in Sri Lanka, what are the specific concerns that you have with this FTA?
Actually, the thing is that the major concern is from the IT sector is that we are opening for all the Singaporeans, and in here there is a vacuum considering the government sector, because if we take the private sector, our IT profession is really good. So we are having a lot of professionals and we are having nice companies here. So that side is growing. Per 5 years it is doubling. So it's a growing industry here. But these Singaporeans are trying to come here in a way that they are going to explore this vacuum in the government sector, because e-governance is not there and we are still working on paper and we don't have anything like that.
But Sri Lanka has to move towards this era of accelerated development. Sri Lanka is globally competitive as well. So then if your issue is that there is no e-governance, then shouldn't the solution to that issue be that the government implement these mechanisms?
Yes, they should. And this is a good place to give the opportunity to Sri Lankans, because we have nice professionals, but what we are doing is that, for example, I will give some examples, that Sri Lankan government in the last election was unable to count the electoral votes, and because of the bad software, as I know. But Sri Lankans are supporting the London Stock Exchange with the highest number of transactions there. So we have professionals here, but government is not giving that opportunity to the correct people, and that is the biggest issue here, because even a US exports department, they believe that Sri Lanka's most open area is the IT sector, so they can come here. They are also willing to come here and get the opportunity from here, because our government is not looking at these things. And why we are trying to open and liberalize for Singapore and give these opportunities to them without giving that to the nationals of Sri Lanka. And it is not only for the nationals of Singapore, they are opening it for all the PR holders there.
Right. Mr. Pereira, on that note, we're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back. You're watching Biz in Focus. Welcome back. This is Biz in Focus. Our guest this evening is Kapila Pereira. He is representing the IT sector in Sri Lanka. Mr. Pereira, don't you feel that this issue has been blown out of proportion, in that this is not really a controversial issue, but it has been sensationalized somewhat? What are your thoughts on that?
The major concern here is, if we consider all the professionals, not only IT, major concern here is that this is the first time that we are truly opening the service sector. So if we are doing this without a responsibility and accountability as like that they are doing now, so it's really dangerous when they have these discussions with India, and end of this month they are having these discussions, the 9th negotiation.
This is for ETCA?
Yes. So if they are going to agreement with Singapore in this manner, it's really dangerous, because we don't need to see the FTA of India to say that it is bad and it is detrimental to the industries in here. But with Singapore, actually they could have done a better job. So that's why we were not opposing to the FTA from the beginning. But what was we was mainly focusing on is the process. The process is wrong, that the policy is not there, and no regulatory framework, no screening process, no protocol to say whether these things are happening under the as they say, under the good governance. So there's nothing. So we were talking about that one, and we knew that there were some allegations in Minister Malik Samarakrama's office, because we learned that there are 3 Americans supporting them as specialists. So we were worried about that. So there were some concerns from professional organizations like that. So we were opposing that, but we were not in the mode of opposing the agreement between Singapore and Sri Lanka. But after the FTA, that, and it was really sudden decision by the government, they just came up and signed. But anyhow, we learned that they are going to sign this one, and they are going to get the cabinet approval as Professional National Front. So we wrote to all the cabinet ministers saying that this process was not transparent.
But Mr. Pereira, there had been consultations and negotiations for 18 months prior to the signing of the agreement.
Yes, there was some consultations with some organizations, and some of these meetings were not consultations, because I was there in one meeting recently in December, as I can remember. So the thing is, it was not a consultation meeting actually. Even the meeting was titled as something like status meeting, that they are showing the status to us, and they just coming there with the negotiation team leader, Mr. KJ Veerasinghe and Chandani Vijayawardena, secretary, everyone was there, but they were showing the state. It's a kind of a status meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was not about consultation. So they can't say that they had consultation with professionals. But some of the professional organizations volunteered and gave these documents, and they are thinking on and how to create a proper regulatory framework. And most of the things they say that they are going to implement them, but we don't feel that one.
Right. So as per the press release issued by the ministry recently, are you not in agreement with the fact that now the ministry in its press release says that there is a qualification process, not the entire Sri Lankan market won't be opened up to Singaporeans and foreign nationals to just come here and work. There will be a vetting process. All of these facts are set out in that press release specifically. Are you in disagreement with that?
Yes, without a process, how could that happen? That is the major concern, because we don't have a screening process at the moment. We don't know about the regulations that coming up. Maybe because, as we heard, this new Immigration Act will make it more liberalized, and they want to make it faster to bring the people from there. So when we are doing those things, maybe it will turn into the other way, because we had this experience, because this is not the first time that they did this. Now we are in a mode that, especially that we can't believe Malik's ministry. The reason is that we know about 2 years back, when we were discussing about the agreement, one day they are showing one copy, and after 2 or 3 meetings they are showing another copy, and when we will get the minutes when we ask for them. So then we realized that about 2 years back we realized that they are in a cunning process, or there is a conspiracy or something like that. So we decided that okay, we will not go to these discussions because they will frame us at the end. So that we feel that, because at the end when they sign this Singapore FTA, then they said that they have consulted a lot of organizations, professional organizations, because they were in the consultation process. At the end they said that okay, you are in this process and we've consulted you. So we realized that one little bit earlier, so we left out from the discussions because of that. But we are happy that some of the professionals were there. That was good as well, because now there is some consultation, and now we can say that we have given the consultation and you have not considered them. So
right.
Yeah.
We're going for another commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Biz in Focus. Our topic of discussion today is the free trade agreement between the governments of Sri Lanka and Singapore. It was signed as far back as January 2018. However, it is still making it to the conversation tables. My guest this evening is Kapila Pereira. He's an IT professional representing the professional body of intellectuals, professionals in the IT sector. Mr. Pereira, the agreement is now signed. It has been inked between two governments. As an IT professional and as a representative of the IT sector in Sri Lanka, how do you think that you need to, as a professional body, respond to this in order to move forward along with the government and the other multiple stakeholders?
Our major concern is that this way of signing FTAs are not good, because our party should committed to bring the opportunity to Sri Lanka, and we can't just say that okay, we had signed FTAs and with the number of FTAs we will get the benefit from them. No, it's not. It's a big lie, because I have heard this one from some ministers. They say that with the number of FTAs that we are signing, we will get the benefit from there. No, it is a negotiation process that we have to be skilled, and we should consider from whom that we are getting the advice, and we should consider the professionals' considerations, and with the collaboration with them, they should decide who is required for this country, and the screening process, what are the qualifications that we need to check. There are a lot of facts to consider. So
how do we move forward? I mean, along with the country, along with the state, now what's done is done. So what's the way forward?
I don't think that we should believe that what's done is done, because we should try to reverse this. We should try to reverse this, and I know that there are a lot of FRs filed.
Sure.
On
several professional bodies have filed fundamental rights petitions before the Supreme Court.
Even we did, and we have a file there, a petition, FR petition. So we believe that we can do something, because we are going for the FR because the Constitution is the only protocol that we have to say that this is wrong. That if we had a policy and a regulatory framework on these things, and if we had a proper protocol on the way that we are negotiating and from whom that we are getting training, because we know that this negotiation team, some of them went to a training to Singapore and got that from some of the negotiators there. So is it a good thing? Because they will know everything about our side. So we can't agree on things like that. It is not in the not in a correct protocol. We should avoid those things. And the other thing is that, for example, there's another issue there, that is Minister Malik Samaravikrama is from the government sector, and the lead negotiator, he's from the government sector, he's a consultant there, and even the person who represented the private sector is from the government sector. Is it correct? Because, and there are a few more in that negotiation team. So is it correct? Because there should be protocols on these things. So if we had them, we might have go for the courts on them. But unfortunately, only option is going with these FR petitions.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kapila Pereira, for joining us on this edition of Biz in Focus. Our topic today was the free trade agreement between Sri Lanka and Singapore and its impacts on the country, on the IT sector specifically, and on the disappointment that several professional bodies seem to be having with the FTA in question. Now, in any trade liberalization process, there are negatives as well as positives, but how does a government go about ensuring that proper consultation takes place with professional bodies, technocrats, bureaucrats, civil society, with the general public at large to whom they are accountable? So these were some of the areas that were touched in brief. Thanks for joining us. Good night.